I never thought the lowest point of my life would be the exact moment my wife decided to start treating me like an inconvenience. We were sitting cross-legged on the living room rug, surrounded by my dad's old cardboard boxes, his slippers, some heavy photo albums, stacks of notes, and his handwriting. I couldn't even look at those without feeling the sharp ache behind my ribs. I tried to keep it together, just sorting quietly, but my eyes kept blurring. Jessica was barely even pretending to help. She kept sighing and shifting around, acting more impatient with every minute. At one point, I held up my dad's faded university mug and just stared at it for a second, thinking about how he'd always make bad jokes about ivy-covered wisdom. My hands were shaking a bit, just enough that I noticed. Suddenly, Jessica snapped, louder than she meant to. Can you not fall apart every 2 minutes? We're never going to finish at this rate. I looked up, and I probably looked stupid, mouth half open, but I really wasn't expecting it. Sorry. This is all still pretty fresh, Jess. I'm, oh my God, Brian. She stood up, her shadow falling over the boxes. I can't keep holding your hand through this. You're not the only one with problems. I have work. I have stress, too. I could hear my own voice getting small. I know you're busy. This is my dad's stuff. I'm trying. She rolled her eyes, grabbed her phone off the coffee table, and stormed to the hallway. I'll be back after this call. Try to finish something for once. Her words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. I just sat there, staring at the carpet, hands gripping the mug. From the window, I could see her pacing outside, phone pressed to her ear. Her frustration didn't make sense. She'd always been supportive before, at least when other people could see. This cold disgust, this was new. Then, as I was putting a book back in the box, I heard her voice drift in through the cracked window. Not angry anymore, soft, almost laughing. Yeah, I'll be there soon. I just need him to stop moping. The shock felt like ice water down my back. At first I thought maybe she was talking to her mom or sister, but then there was a muffled male laugh on the other end, low and familiar. I wasn't even breathing, just listening. She let out this sweet little giggle I hadn't heard in months. Don't worry, I'll be quick. He barely notices when I'm gone. I sat completely still, mug clutched so hard it hurt as her voice faded and my heart thudded in my ears. Every angry word from earlier suddenly made a new kind of sense, and that terrified me. But I didn't move, not even when she walked back in, keys jangling, grabbing her purse. She glanced at me, but her eyes were glassy, somewhere else. I've got to head out. Try not to make a mess, she tossed over her shoulder, and was gone before I could answer. I must have watched her taillights disappear for a full minute before realizing I was still on the floor, surrounded by my dad's things, feeling like I'd just been erased from my own life. That week passed in a weird, jumpy blur. Jessica started acting like the world's busiest HR manager overnight. Every day, there was a crisis at work, some new project that couldn't wait. She came home late, sometimes after midnight, never with any real explanation. When I'd ask if she was okay, she'd just sigh and scroll on her phone, barely looking at me. Tuesday night, right before I crashed on the sofa, I went to hang up her coat. Out tumbled a crumpled diner receipt, double order of burgers, milkshakes at some 24-hour place across town, time-stamped 12:47 a.m. It had 2 sets of initials scribbled at the top in blue ink, J plus M. I waited until she got out of the shower. The receipt pinched between my fingers and held it up. Jess, why were you at the mainline diner so late? She didn't even blink, just towel-dried her hair and shrugged. Oh, that. I went with Megan. We needed to vent about work. Why? Her answer was too quick, too light, and I could tell she was expecting me to just buy it. You two were out that late? You never even mentioned. She cut me off, voice cold. Sorry, I didn't text every step of my night. Is that a crime now? I felt myself shrinking. No, just I was worried. That's all. She gave me this withering look, as if I'd asked her to account for her breathing. Nothing happened. Just drop it, Ryan. That night, after she fell asleep, I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching her phone bill in my hand, wondering how much I was supposed to ignore before it destroyed me. Right as I was about to turn out the light, my phone buzzed, a group text. Mark, our mutual friend, was inviting the gang to a backyard barbecue at his place on Saturday. The message was a joke about who could out-grill the grill master, tagging a string of people. But as I scrolled through the RSVP list, I saw Jessica's name already there, a thumbs up and 3 fire emojis from her. My name wasn't mentioned at all. That pit in my stomach that had started when she called me useless just kept getting bigger, and the laughter from outside the window replayed in my head. I didn't sleep much after that. I kept hoping it was just a rough patch, that grief was making everything worse on both of us, and things would settle down if I just gave Jessica space. But every day that followed stretched me thinner. Jessica started coming home late, always with some story about back-to-back HR emergencies or urgent after-hours meetings. I'd be pacing the living room when I heard her key in the lock, sometimes as late as 1 in the morning. She never apologized or even acted surprised to see me awake. One night, I greeted her as she set her bag down. "Everything okay at work?" "You've been on a crazy schedule." She didn't make eye contact, just started kicking off her shoes. "It's the annual reviews. We're swamped. You wouldn't get it, Ryan. It's just nonstop drama." She said it like my job was some kind of joke, as if me quietly working from home all day was easy compared to her heroics. I wanted to ask more, but her shoulders were tense and her jaw was set. Anytime I pressed, she got defensive. Sometimes she'd just pull out her phone right in the middle of me talking. On Thursday, I was hanging up her coat, trying to do something normal, when my hand brushed something in the pocket. I pulled out a diner receipt, grease-stained, folded twice. I was about to toss it, but then I saw the timestamp, 12:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. 2 burgers, 2 milkshakes. The server had written, "Thanks, J plus M," with a little smiley face. I stared at it for a second, stomach sinking. Tuesday night was one of the nights she'd worked late. I waited until she came out from the bathroom, towel wrapped around her hair. I held the receipt out, not sure how to even bring it up. "Jess, were you at Mainline Diner after midnight on Tuesday?" She barely glanced at the paper. "Yeah. I went with Megan from HR. She just broke up with her boyfriend and needed to vent. It was nothing." Something about the way she said nothing felt off. Too casual. "You didn't mention it before." She shrugged, brushing past me to dig through her closet. "Sorry, I forgot I had to report my dinner plans now. It's not a big deal." She needed someone to talk to. I stopped, feeling stupid. Was Mark there too? She spun around, giving me this ice-cold stare that made me feel about 3 feet tall. "No. Why would you even ask that? Are you keeping tabs on everyone I know now? Grow up, Ryan. I'm not your property." I swallowed any other questions. Her tone wasn't just cold. It was dismissive, like I was bothering her with the basic reality of our lives. I wanted to push, to ask why she was lying to my face, but I just stood there, holding that dumb receipt until she snatched it out of my hand and tossed it on her dresser. That night, she fell asleep with her back to me, phone glowing under the covers. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling more alone than I'd felt since Dad passed. It wasn't just the late hours or the weird explanations. It was like Jessica had already left, and I was just a roommate she barely tolerated. Later, my phone buzzed with a new group chat notification. Mark, of all people, had sent out a message. "Barbecue at my place Saturday. Let's get the old crew together. Food, beers, good times." "Who's in?" The list was full of our friends, the people we used to hang out with all the time. Scrolling down, I saw Jessica's reply, already RSVP'd, making jokes about her legendary potato salad. Everyone else was chiming in, except me. Mark hadn't even tagged me in the invite. I just sat there gripping my phone, reading the thread again and again. Not one person noticed I'd been left out. Not one person brought me up. All I could think about was that receipt and how Jessica's eyes had gone glacial when I asked about it. The feeling that had been gnawing at me all week sharpened into something else, like I was the extra piece everyone wanted to leave out of the picture. Sleep didn't come easy after that. I could already tell things were unraveling fast. Saturday, I walked into my mom's kitchen and found her already setting the table for lunch, humming like she was trying to orchestrate a normal day. I tried to match her mood, even forced a smile, but she could see through me. She always could. She poured coffee, glanced at me, then just said, "You look like you haven't slept in a week." I tried laughing it off. Jessica's been swamped with work stuff. I've just been picking up the slack at home. You know how it is. Mom set her mug down, her hands not quite steady. She comes home late a lot now, doesn't she? I stared at the steam rising from my cup. HR things. She keeps getting stuck doing emergency reviews or covering for people. She's under a lot of stress, I guess. She leaned in, voice dropping low so it barely carried past the table. "Ryan, I saw Jessica's car outside Mark's shop last Saturday night. It was almost 10, way past the time they close. The garage was all dark, but her car was parked there for at least half an hour. I drove by on my way home from Bridge Club. I didn't see anyone, but it didn't feel right." My heart dropped straight through the floor. Maybe her car broke down. Mark's good with engines. She probably needed him to have a look. She hasn't said anything, but she might not want me to worry. Mom gave me this look, sad, but also a little impatient. "You really believe that? After all these late nights and her barely speaking to you?" I felt something twist in my chest, but I shook my head. I want to believe it's nothing. She's never been good with stress. Maybe she needs friends more than me right now. It'll pass. She reached out and squeezed my hand, her grip firmer than I expected. "You keep giving her the benefit of the doubt, and she keeps taking advantage, honey. I know you want to see the best in people, but sometimes you have to see what's right in front of you." I tried to laugh again, but it caught in my throat. She said she was out with a work friend on Tuesday. Maybe it's all just bad timing, Mom. Maybe I'm being paranoid. Her voice softened, but she didn't let go. "You know your father was an optimist, too. He always looked for the good in people, but he also knew when to face the truth, even if it hurt." I couldn't look her in the eye. If something's going on, I don't want to find out like this. She got up and walked to the living room shelf, where she kept a spare key bowl, keys for relatives, neighbors, emergencies. She picked out my old house key, pressed it into my palm, and met my eyes with a seriousness that cut through all my defenses. "You don't need to snoop, but you do need to check at least once. For your own peace of mind. You don't have to do it alone either. I'm here if you need me." I stared at the key, feeling its weight, remembering playing with it as a kid, before I ever knew what betrayal could feel like. Before I left, she hugged me that desperate mom way, like she was afraid I might break. "Just check, Ryan. Don't let her make a fool out of you. Just once." I slipped the key into my pocket, her words burning in my head the whole drive home. There was no way to go back to pretending after that. I didn't want to play detective in my own marriage, but after my lunch with Mom, there was no way I could let it go. That Saturday, Mark's barbecue rolled around. I hadn't officially been invited, but I still knew most of the people there. I figured showing up unannounced would give me the answer I needed, one way or another. I told myself I just wanted to see Jessica with my own eyes, surrounded by friends. I parked 2 blocks away, my hand shaking a little as I walked up the driveway, sounds of laughter and clinking glasses carrying from the backyard. People were everywhere. The grill was fired up, music blasting from a Bluetooth speaker. I spotted Jessica immediately. She was at the center of it all, red Solo cup in hand, telling some story with Mark leaning in close, both of them laughing way too loud. She looked so at ease, like nothing at home was bothering her at all. I hesitated at the gate, then stepped through. A couple of people looked surprised to see me, but nobody said anything. I heard someone mutter, I didn't know he was coming, but I just nodded and slid through the crowd. When I caught Jessica's eye and gave a small wave, her smile froze, just for a split second. Then she brightened and launched her voice over everyone, loud enough to stop conversations. Wow, Ryan. Didn't think you'd actually show up. We were just saying you never leave your computer long enough for real life. People all around us cracked up. Mark gave a mock gasp. I didn't believe it myself. There goes my bet. Even a couple of our neighbors snickered, and someone clinked a glass. I felt my face burn. I tried to laugh it off, but the sting was instant. I stepped closer, searching for any hint of warmth from Jessica, but she just rolled her eyes as if I was embarrassing her by existing. Don't worry, guys. I promised him there's no Wi-Fi in the backyard. Maybe we'll see him do something other than check email for once. The crowd erupted. Mark grinned wide, put his hand on my shoulder, leaning in for the punchline. Let Jessica have her fun, man. The backyard's more her speed anyway. I managed a stiff smile, trying to look like I was in on the joke, but inside I wanted to disappear. The laughter went on longer than it should have. No one jumped in to take the heat off me, not one of our friends. I drifted by the drink table, trying to steady myself. A couple of Mark's mechanic buddies watched me out of the corner of their eyes, like I was some out-of-place guest. Jessica never came over. She kept her spot by Mark, practically hanging off his arm as he poured her a drink. Every so often, she'd throw a glance my way, but she'd just turn back to Mark, whisper something, and both would laugh. I tried to join a conversation near the grill. Someone asked about a new video game, but as soon as I spoke, they went quiet, then peeled away. I stood there, humiliated, pretending to check my phone for messages that never came. After the third or fourth round of laughter, I started to move toward the exit. Mark intercepted me. Hey, don't be so uptight, Ryan. Let her have her fun. His hand on my back was heavy, almost pushing me out of my own group. Jessica looked over, tossed her hair, and called out, he'll be fine. He's used to being left out. People roared at that. Then Mark leaned in close, so close I could smell his cologne and the whiskey on his breath. His voice dropped so only I could hear, and he hit me with a smirk so sharp it could cut glass. She needed a real man, Ryan. Get used to it. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I looked at Mark's smug grin, at the whole backyard full of people who clearly thought I was just part of the joke. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't move. All I could do was swallow my pride and walk back through the crowd, feeling every stare follow me. It wasn't just humiliation. It was the realization that Jessica and Mark weren't even hiding it anymore. They wanted me to know, and they wanted everyone else to see me as the fool. I left, my hands shaking. I didn't even remember the drive home, just the echo of their laughter burning in my ears. After that barbecue, it was like someone had flipped a switch on my life. I kept checking my phone out of habit, but the usual group chat with the guys was silent. No memes, no trash talk about Sunday football, nothing. I tried to tell myself everyone was just busy, maybe burned out on drama, but the silence thickened by the hour. On Monday, I walked into work and felt it immediately. Brian, the dude who always asked about my fantasy picks, barely nodded at me in the break room. I overheard 2 co-workers whispering in the hall, then both went quiet as soon as I turned the corner. Even my desk neighbor, who used to share his lunch stir-fry, didn't say a word. People kept glancing at me, all pity and awkwardness, and then looking away. Trying to shake it off, I shot a text to Andy, one of my oldest friends, just asking if he wanted to hit up trivia night. He replied with a single word, can't. That was it. No promise to reschedule, not even a joke. I stared at the screen for a while and watched the three-dot typing bubble pop up, then vanish. He never followed up. At home, Jessica acted like nothing had happened. She still came back late, still had her phone glued to her hand, but now she'd hum as she did the dishes, almost like she was performing relaxation for my benefit. If I tried to talk to her, she'd sigh exaggeratedly, roll her eyes, and go lock herself in the bedroom to unwind. I could feel her slipping away hour by hour, and it was like everyone else was following her lead. One night, I stopped by the local store for groceries. Lisa, who'd known us since our housewarming, caught my eye in the produce aisle. She opened her mouth to say something, then just waved awkwardly and turned down another aisle. I heard her whispering to someone on the phone as she passed. Yeah, he looked rough. You heard about Saturday, right? Just sad, you know? On Thursday, I opened Facebook to check an old buddy's engagement photos. As I scrolled, I noticed Jessica had posted a group shot from the barbecue, her and Mark, arms around each other, everyone smiling. I wasn't in the photo, of course. The caption read, "Nothing like real friends to remind you what matters most." I checked the comments. No one mentioned me. Not one person asked where I was. That Friday, I waited all day for someone to ping me about the usual Friday night drinks. By 7 p.m., the only message I had came from Jessica. Don't wait up. I sat in the silent living room, every tick of the clock pounding in my ears. I kept replaying Mark's words. She needed a real man. Get used to it. And the laughter of all those people who'd once called me a friend. Late that afternoon, my boss stopped by my desk. He always looked a little uncomfortable in tough situations, so when he sat on the edge of my cubicle and cleared his throat, I felt my stomach twist. "Ryan, can I have a quick word?" His voice was soft, almost gentle. I nodded, standing up and following him to the empty conference room. He shut the door, looked at the floor a second, then met my eyes. "Listen, I've heard from a couple mutual friends that things at home have been tense," he said, his tone careful. "I just want to make sure everything's okay. If you need support or time off or anything, let us know." I stared at him, stunned. "What do you mean, mutual friends?" He gave a small, sad smile. "Jessica's mentioned you've been going through a rough stretch. She's worried about your instability. She reached out to a few folks." He shifted awkwardly, like he hated being put in this position. "I'm not judging, Ryan. I just want you to know we're here if you need help." The wall of sympathy, the implications, it almost knocked the air out of me. It was clear Jessica and Mark weren't just isolating me with friends. They were making sure everyone saw me as the problem. They were rewriting our whole story and passing it around like gossip. I left the conference room angrier than I'd ever been, but with a new kind of clarity burning in my chest. If they wanted to paint me as the unstable one, I'd show them just how steady I could be. Linda called me Saturday morning, voice sharp in a way I hadn't heard since Dad got sick. "Dinner. Tonight. No excuses, Ryan." I almost lied and said I was busy, but something in her tone cut through the fog I'd been living in all week. She didn't bother with small talk. When I walked in, she was already plating up lasagna, her mouth pressed in a thin line. She sat across from me, her hands folded, watching as I picked at my food. After a few minutes, she put her fork down. "You look worse every time I see you. Are you eating at all?" I gave her a weak attempt at reassurance. "I'm fine, Mom. Just a rough week at work, that's all." She shook her head, not buying it. "Don't feed me that, Ryan. I know you. This isn't work. This is Jessica. And I can't stand to watch her drag you through the mud anymore." I flinched, staring into my plate. "It's not that simple, Mom. Things are just hard. She's going through a lot. I'm going through a lot. Maybe we both need space. I just need to figure things out. Linda's eyes burned. She pushed her chair back and stood so suddenly her napkin fluttered to the floor. If you stay with a woman like that, you're not the man your father raised you to be. Her voice cracked at the end, but she didn't back down. You've always been patient. You see the good in everyone, even when it's not there. But this, you're letting her destroy you. That hit harder than anything at the barbecue. For a second, I wanted to defend Jessica, to say she was just lost, but nothing came out. I swallowed, voice thin. Mom, I think she's seeing Mark. Linda's expression didn't even flicker with surprise. Instead, she let out a shaky breath and knelt beside the sideboard. She pulled out her purse and handed me a manila envelope, her hand shaking a little. I was hoping I wouldn't have to show you this, but you need to see it. I pulled the flap open, and inside were a handful of photos, Jessica and Mark laughing together at the farmer's market. Mark's arm around her waist, Jessica beaming up at him, buying flowers and splitting a pretzel, as if they'd been together forever. Taken from a distance, but you could see everything in Jessica's face. Linda knelt beside me, her hand on my back. Last Saturday. I saw them by the bakery stand, plain as day. She wasn't even pretending you didn't exist, Ryan. She was just living, like you were already gone. I tried to speak, but a lump blocked my throat. Why didn't you say anything sooner? She shook her head, tears in her eyes now. Because I kept hoping I was wrong. Because you love her, and I wanted to believe she'd come back to you, that she just needed time. But you deserve better than being humiliated in front of half the town. You deserve better than lies. I held the photos, my hands trembling, not just with anger, but with relief, too. It wasn't all in my head. I wasn't crazy. What do I even do now? Linda squeezed my shoulder, her voice steady despite everything. You get out. You come here. You stay as long as you need. I won't let you face this alone, Ryan. She tapped the envelope. And if you decide to make her squirm a little, I'll back you the whole way. She doesn't get to walk away from what she's done, not without everyone knowing who she really is. There was a fierceness in her I hadn't seen since I was a kid. For the first time in weeks, I felt something more than shame or helplessness. It was resolve. I slid the photos back in the envelope and nodded, meeting her eyes. Thanks, Mom. I think I'm ready. She hugged me tight, and for the first time since Dad died, her grip felt solid. We both knew nothing was going back to normal. After tonight, everything would change. After that dinner with my mom, I realized I wasn't just angry anymore. I was done being the nice guy people could walk all over. That weekend, I reached out to two old college friends, Pete and Sam. Pete's in IT security now, and Sam's a paralegal. They'd both been around long enough to know when something smelled wrong. When I called, neither one hesitated. They came over that Sunday, no questions asked. Pete dropped his backpack by the door and got right to it. So, you want to catch them without doing anything illegal. Totally doable. No hacking, no tracking devices. We focus on what's already public and what people are willing to say on the record. Sam nodded, flipping open a notepad. Think like a reporter, Ryan. Screenshots, dates, messages, anything a regular person could find or witness. If you want this to stick socially, you need to have it cold and organized. I felt calmer than I had in weeks. Jessica's been getting bolder. Mark too. It's like they want people to know, but not me. I just need evidence, stuff that makes them look like who they really are. I'm done doubting myself. Pete grinned, all business. Let's start with socials. Has she posted anything sketchy, or is it all DMs and private stuff? I shook my head. Her feed's boring, but she's always laughing with her phone, and she's got this private Instagram group. She calls it her close friends list. Sam perked up, tapping her pen. Anyone in there willing to tip you off? I hesitated, then remembered one of Jessica's HR coworkers, Rachel. She'd always been nice to me at parties, and she'd given me an odd look at the barbecue. I found her on Messenger. My hands actually shook a bit as I typed, but I kept it simple. Hey Rachel, this is Ryan. Weird question, but have you noticed Jessica and Mark hanging out a lot lately? A couple of minutes later, a notification popped up. Rachel replied, honestly, yeah. People have noticed. Kind of thought you knew? I swallowed hard and pushed. Has she posted anything? My gut says something's off, but I need to know what everyone else is seeing. Rachel sent a screen recording of Jessica's close friend's Instagram story. Pete and Sam watched over my shoulder as I hit play. There they were, Jessica and Mark, side by side in a booth at a bar, laughing into the camera. Mark kissed her on the cheek, Jessica grinned, and someone off-screen whooped. The caption read, "When work wives and actual fun mix." There were several photos, Mark and Jessica clinking glasses, Jessica sitting on his lap, her HR friends in the comments with hearts and inside jokes. Sam whistled softly. That's about as subtle as a freight train. Pete added, That's gold, man. All you need now is a timeline and a few more witnesses. Stitch it together, and no one can twist the story. We spent the next hour combing through old group chats. Andy, my supposedly loyal buddy from trivia, had sent a message a week ago. Jess and Mark were the last ones at the bar last night. Wild. I screenshotted everything. Pete suggested we check the neighbors. One of them, Mrs. Kwan, always saw everything from her kitchen window. I swallowed my pride and walked next door. Mrs. Kwan answered quick. Oh, Ryan. I saw your wife with Mark again last Thursday. They parked out front, waited in his truck, chatting for ages. Just seemed odd, that's all. I got her permission to write down her observation. No hesitation. She even offered to talk if anyone ever doubted me. Back at my place, Sam stacked the screenshots, eyewitness notes, and those Instagram stories into a folder. This is enough to make it impossible for them to claim you imagined it. If you want to go public, hit hard and don't let up. Pete nodded, eyes steely. You don't let them control the story anymore, Ryan. You do. That night, as I organized everything into a neat digital file, I felt cold, but focused for the first time since Dad died. I messaged Rachel again, thanking her. She replied, Honestly, people need to know. Jessica's been bragging about fooling you. You deserve better. I stared at the collection of ugly truth on my screen and realized I was ready to make Jessica and Mark finally answer for everything. The next step, make it public and make sure there's no crawling back. After getting my evidence together, I played it cool, letting Jessica think I was just slogging through another phase of grief. She'd come home late and barely acknowledge me, scrolling her phone while humming or texting on the porch. I started working extra hours, at least that's what I let her believe. In reality, I was staying up until midnight, organizing screenshots and plotting every move with Pete and Sam. Jessica started walking around the house lighter, bolder. She'd leave for girls' nights without even pretending to care if I noticed. She even invited Mark over to the house once to look at the dryer. They spent 20 minutes laughing in the laundry room, never asking if I wanted to join. The disrespect was so thick it almost felt like a dare. It was during one of these late nights that I remembered Mark's long-term girlfriend, Hannah. She and I had never been especially close, but we'd seen each other at plenty of holidays and block parties. I found her on Facebook, sent a message, kept it simple. Hey, Hannah, can we talk privately about Mark? I think there's something you deserve to know. She replied within the hour. What happened? I've been feeling weird about him lately. I called her, voice shaky at first, but growing steadier as I laid it all out, how Jessica and Mark had been sneaking around, the late-night diners, the Instagram stories, the barbecue. I told her I had proof. Photos, screenshots, messages. There was a long silence. Then Hannah's voice cracked, low and raw. He told me you were losing it. He said Jessica was just supporting him as a friend. She swore softly. I thought I was crazy. You're not, I said, and for the first time I actually meant it, for both of us. I have everything documented. I want you to see it all. We met the next day at a park, sitting side by side on a bench. I pushed the evidence across the table. She scrolled through each photo slowly, jaw clenched. I can't believe this, she whispered. He just took me to dinner last week. He said he was working late for a friend who lost his dad. I nodded, feeling the anger soften into something cold and focused. They think they're untouchable. Jessica's been bragging to her coworkers about fooling me. Mark's parading her around town. I want to end it, not just for me, but for you. Hannah looked at me, her eyes glassy but determined. Let's do it together. If we both show up, side by side, with the proof, nobody can call it a misunderstanding. We exchanged numbers, working out details over the next few days. I coached her on what to say, how to reveal the evidence. She reached out to a few of Mark's family members with casual texts, laying the groundwork. I did the same with a couple of Jessica's HR team, letting them know I'd be at the next get-together. Meanwhile, Jessica got more reckless. She left her phone out on the counter, sometimes open to flirty texts with Mark. She even started suggesting I should get out more, as if I was the one holding us both back. Every time she threw a careless barb my way, I just played along, letting her feel safe. She had no idea the ground was shifting beneath her. 3 days later, as I was reviewing my folder of evidence for the 100th time, my phone buzzed with a message from Hannah. The screenshot showed a Facebook post, Mark's grinning face, holding up a beer. The caption, turning 37 soon? Big birthday blowout. Everyone invited. Can't wait to see all my favorite people there. The guest list included Jessica, me, mutual friends, family, even some of Jessica's HR team. Hannah's text followed. Here's our shot. Ready to make them wish they never messed with us? For the first time in months, I felt excitement instead of dread. A real plan. An ally. Jessica and Mark had set the table themselves, and now finally, I was going to flip it. Mark's birthday bash looked like every other suburban blowout. Kegs and coolers, banners strung across the fencing, half the town milling around with red cups. It was the biggest crowd I'd seen since Dad's funeral, except this time no one was patting me on the back. They were here for Mark, his family, our old friends, a couple of Jessica's HR buddies, even Mark's boss from the garage, a big guy in a grease-stained work jacket. Hannah and I slipped into the side gate, sticking close. My heart hammered, but I kept my hands steady, carrying the manila folder with every piece of proof I needed. Jessica was already working the crowd by the grill, arm looped around Mark's, laughing like she already won the night. People kept glancing at me and whispering. Maybe they could sense something was off, or maybe they just didn't expect me to show up at all. Either way, the tension felt like a live wire buzzing under the music and chatter. Hannah squeezed my arm. We do this together, right? No matter what they throw at us. Together, I said, voice tight but certain. Just before the cake, Mark tapped the spoon on a bottle and yelled, "All right, everyone, gather round. Let's make this the best birthday yet." People started circling up. Jessica, in her element, hopped onto a patio chair with Mark, all eyes on them. Mark's boss clapped him on the back, already gearing up for a toast. I caught Hannah's eye and nodded. We moved to the front of the group, right as Mark's mom was lighting the candles. Hannah cleared her throat, voice ringing out over the crowd. Sorry to interrupt, but there's something everyone here needs to see. Especially you, Jessica. And you, Mark. The music cut. The chatter died out, replaced by a low ripple of confusion. I stepped up beside her, raised the folder, and started handing out color printouts, screenshots, Instagram stories, texts, photos of Jessica and Mark at every possible place they'd hidden out together. I passed one to Jessica's HR coworker, who gasped and turned pale. Jessica snapped, too loud. Are you serious, Ryan? You want to air dirty laundry at a birthday party? Grow up. Hannah didn't flinch. She turned to Mark, holding up a printout of the bar photo, Jessica in his lap, Mark's hand on her leg. You told me you were working overtime? Was this it? Working overtime on Ryan's wife? A hush fell so heavy I could hear the lighter clicking by the cake. Mark bristled, trying to play it off. Cam and Han, it's just a joke. Everyone knows we're close, right? Right, Jess? But Jessica, for once, was silent. She looked around and saw every set of eyes on her, HR friends, neighbors, even Mark's own father, mouth hanging open. I kept my voice steady. Jessica, you've been lying for months. Mark, you told me to get used to it, that she needed a real man. Want to tell everyone what that meant? I pulled out my phone, found the audio message Mark had sent me the night of the barbecue. His voice, cocky and clear. She needed a real man. Be used to it. I played it through the Bluetooth speaker. There were gasps, then complete silence. Jessica tried to laugh, the sound forced and brittle. It's just drama. Everyone knows Ryan's been losing it since his dad passed. But her HR manager cut her off, voice sharp. Jessica, you told us you and Mark were planning his engagement party. Why is your name all over these photos? Mark's boss shoved through the crowd, grabbing a printout and looking from Mark to Jessica. His face turned red. Mark, you bring this circus to my door and expect me to keep you on? I don't need this kind of mess tied to my shop. Clear out your toolbox Monday. You're done. The words hit like a cannon shot. Mark's mouth flapped open, but nothing came out. His boss stormed off, and Mark's mother sank onto a bench, shaking her head in disbelief. Every friend, every coworker just stared. Jessica's cheeks burned crimson. She tried to meet my eyes, but I looked straight past her. People started to whisper, phones coming out, some snapping photos, some recording video. The social fallout was instant. I could feel the world finally catching up to the truth I'd been living for months. No one tried to defend them. No one even tried to comfort Jessica or Mark. The party was dead, the mess laid bare for everyone to see. I didn't wait for the cake. I nodded at Hannah, grabbed my folder, and walked out as the shockwaves kept rolling. For the first time in months, I felt the power shift in my hands, and I knew neither of them would ever forget what it felt like to be exposed for exactly who they were. The day after the party, I packed my things in silence and left Jessica's house key on the kitchen counter. I didn't bother leaving a note. I moved in with Mom, all my boxes stacked in her spare room, the envelope of evidence shoved in the back of the closet. Linda didn't say much. She just hugged me, and for once there were no tears, just relief. Around town, the mood had shifted. I'd walk into the grocery store and hear whispers. Jessica's name came up in every checkout line, never kindly. I caught sight of her once, standing alone by her car, her old friend group huddled across the parking lot, nobody waving. At work, people stopped by my desk to ask how I was holding up, dropping lines like, "Heard about what went down. Good for you, man," before moving on with their day. A week later, Rachel from HR texted, "You probably know, but Jessica's not coming back after her leave." Word travels fast. The message ended with, "People are sorry. They just didn't want to get caught in the crossfire." Mark's life collapsed even faster. The shop closed ranks. Word was, his boss made a show of tossing Mark's toolbox out behind the garage. I heard Mark tried to call a few old friends, but nobody picked up. Hannah blocked him the same night. I spent my evenings fixing up mom's garden, drinking coffee, and answering the occasional message from someone who'd once ghosted me. Didn't know the truth back then, man. Glad you're okay. I didn't reply to most of them. For the first time since Dad died, I could breathe. I didn't need Jessica's explanations, or Mark's fake smiles, or anyone's pity. I could finally see everything for what it was: cold, ugly, but over. Last thing I heard before leaving town for a weekend was two guys at the hardware store, laughing as Jessica ducked past them. One of them shook his head and said, "Just loud enough for her to hear. Guess being the life of the party doesn't mean much when nobody wants you around." That's the only ending this story ever needed.